Imagine a country that has its own government, army, currency, even a passport. But officially, it doesn't exist. No seat at the UN. No recognition. Yet, it's been surviving for decades. Welcome to Transnistria, the ghost nation hidden in plain sight. Tucked away in Eastern Europe, there is a sliver of land that behaves in every way like a country, yet officially it does not exist. This place is called Transnistria. It has its own government, its own army, and even its own currency, the Transnistrian ruble, which you can't spend anywhere else in the world. It issues its own passports and stamps them at its borders. But no other nation on Earth will accept them as valid travel documents. It is a curious anomaly, a state that functions independently but remains unrecognized by the United Nations, including by Russia, its closest ally. This creates a strange, almost surreal existence for the people who call it home, living in a nation that is, in the eyes of the world, nothing more than a breakaway region of Moldova. Geographically, Transnistria is a narrow strip of territory wedged between the eastern bank of the Dnieper River and the border of Ukraine. Its story began in earnest with the collapse of the Soviet Union, as Moldova declared its independence in 1991. But not everyone within Moldova's borders welcomed this new independence. Many in Transnistria, especially those of Russian and Ukrainian descent, feared that Moldova would eventually unify with neighboring Romania. In response, Transnistria declared its own independence. This move triggered a brief but bloody war in 1992. Though the conflict ended in a ceasefire, no peace treaty was ever signed. Instead, Transnistria was left in limbo, a de facto independent state with all the trappings of sovereignty, yet no international recognition. What followed was a frozen conflict. Russian troops remained stationed in the region under the guise of peacekeepers, but their presence cemented Transnistria's separation from Moldova. Over the decades, life in Transnistria settled into a strange kind of normal. It held elections, created a flag, and even established embassies, though they're only recognized by other breakaway regions like Abkhazia and South Ossetia. Walking through Transnistria's capital, Tiraspol feels like stepping into a Soviet time capsule. Statues of Lenin still stand proudly, and hammers and sickles decorate public buildings. Soviet nostalgia runs deep here. It's not just in the monuments, but in the mindset of the people and the style of governance. The economy is largely state-controlled, and censorship is a known reality. Yet, for all its Cold War aesthetics, life goes on. Children go to school, markets open every morning, and families gather for meals. It's a functioning society, but one that exists in a parallel world, cut off from much of the international community. Despite this isolation, Transnistria has managed to develop a surprisingly robust identity. It has national symbols, a distinct culture, and a fierce pride among its residents. They see themselves not as Moldovan separatists, but as citizens of a nation that the world simply refuses to acknowledge. So how does a place like Transnistria survive? The answer, in part, lies in its ties to Russia. Although Moscow doesn't officially recognize Transnistria as independent, it provides crucial economic support. Russia sends money, supplies cheap gas, and offers political backing on the international stage. For many in Transnistria, Russia is both a lifeline and a symbol of security. But this dependence also means that Transnistria often finds itself caught in the geopolitical tug-of-war between East and West. Moldova, meanwhile, continues to claim Transnistria as part of its territory. Over the years, multiple rounds of negotiations have failed to resolve the dispute. International efforts led by the OSCE and other mediators have produced little progress. The result is a conflict that remains frozen, not active, but not resolved either. And as the years go by, a new generation grows up knowing no other home than this unrecognized republic. Transnistria's international status isn't just a political issue. It has real consequences for the people who live there. Because their passports aren't recognized, traveling abroad is difficult. Citizens often rely on dual or even triple nationalities, Moldovan, Russian, or Ukrainian, just to leave the country. Business is also a challenge. Without recognition, Companies based in Transnistria face hurdles in global trade, banking, and communication. Yet, in spite of these obstacles, some economic activity continues. Small factories operate, agriculture persists, and local markets are active. The black market and smuggling have long been rumored to play a role in the region's economy, especially in earlier decades, though authorities deny this. For now, Transnistria remains a quiet, stubborn relic of a bygone era, a self-declared country that simply refuses to disappear. But it also serves as a reminder of how the collapse of empires leaves behind unfinished stories. Those unfinished stories aren't just political, they're personal. Ask the residents of Transnistria, and you'll hear a variety of perspectives. Some are fiercely loyal to their homeland and see no need for change. Others dream of reunification with Moldova or hope for Russian annexation like Crimea. And many simply want stability, education, and better opportunities for their children. That quiet longing for a better life exists underneath the surface, between the nostalgia and the national pride. The young generation, especially, finds itself caught between worlds. They grow up with Soviet-style education and Russian media, but also use smartphones, scroll through TikTok, and dream of studying abroad. This clash of eras gives Transnistria a strange, almost surreal energy. One foot in the past. One foot in a globalized future that they can see but not fully touch. It's a place where history hasn't quite let go, and the future hasn't quite arrived. So, what does the future hold for Transnistria? The honest answer is, no one knows. The conflict remains unresolved. Moldova doesn't have the military power to take the region back. Russia, despite its support, has other global priorities. And the international community largely treats the situation as a frozen conflict to be managed rather than solved. In the meantime, Transnistria continues to exist in its unique state of limbo. It's a nation in all but name, a country with borders that the world doesn't see. But within those invisible borders live real people with real hopes, fears, and dreams. Their story is more than just a geopolitical oddity, it's a human one. About identity, belonging, and what it means to call a place home, even when the world refuses to admit it exists. And perhaps that's what makes Transnistria so fascinating. Not just the politics, but the perseverance of the people who live in a country that technically isn't there. These stories often get lost in global headlines, overshadowed by larger conflicts and power struggles. But in the quiet corners of Transnistria, life continues. Weddings still happen. Kids still go to school. Farmers plant seeds in the spring and harvest in the fall. It's easy to think of unrecognized countries as failed states or lawless zones. But Transnistria challenges that narrative. It's orderly, organized, and, by many accounts, safe. The streets are clean. Crime is relatively low. And despite the economic challenges, there's a sense of local pride and routine. Still, isolation takes a toll. Many young people eventually leave, seeking better lives abroad. Those who remain live in a constant state of uncertainty, unsure if their home will one day be taken.